This podcast is part of the Gonna Geek network. The opinions expressed may not represent other podcasts or affiliates of Gonna Geek. Check out more podcasts at GonnaGeek.com and get ready because geekiness starts in 3, 2, 1.
You have been granted clearance level 10. Stand by for S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents of equal or higher security clearance.
And now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Agent Stargate Pioneer.
I'm Agent Haley.
And I'm Agent Lauren.
Welcome to the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast. One shot number 5, The Incredible Hulk. We're a fan-based podcast on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. television show. But since they're on hiatus, we get to talk about the general Marvel universe because you can't have one without the other. Just a reminder, you can go to our website, legendsofshield.com, where you can find all our great contact information, including our Twitters, our Facebooks, our emails. You can also check out our voicemail line at 844-THE-BUS-1 or 844-843-2871. And Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is hosted on the Gonna Geek network. Go on to GonnaGeek.com and check out all the fabulous podcasts, geeky and sci-fi related, that are on there. I've had one heck of a busy week. What about you two girls?
It's been pretty nuts here.
Yeah, got to see X-Men this week, though.
Yes.
I hate you all.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
Really want to see it.
Yeah, it has one of my favorite minor characters from the comics and one of my least favorite minor characters from the comics. So that was kind of an interesting polar thing right there.
I thought it was supposed to have just about every single X-Men related character out there.
Not close.
Not even close, no. I'd say X3 probably had more minor itty-bitty little cameos from third-string mutants and stuff like that. But this one had a much better story than X3. So
it's a real high watermark.
Yeah. Also, Hugh Jackman butt.
Yeah.
Is it better than First Class?
I think I might still like First Class a little bit better, but I'd have to rewatch this one a few more times.
You like First Class better than Hugh Jackman's butt, or better than Days of Future Past? We need to clarify that.
You do need to clarify that.
Well, while you're thinking, let me ask you this. You probably didn't, but Haley, did you see it in 2D or 3D?
2D.
Ah, because that's the only thing I would go see it in is 2D.
I saw it in 2D as well.
Oh, we're a bunch of 2D-ites here. Okay.
Well, that was the time it was on.
Okay. Well, for you listeners out there, if you have something to say about the 3D version of X-Men Days of Future Past, please call our voicemail line at 844-THE-BUS-1, because I'd like to hear about what your experience is, since I cannot watch a 3D movie the way my eyes are. So, sorry, guys. Anyway, we got some rather extensive Marvel news this week, don't we? Lauren, you got a couple of stories to talk about, don't you?
Yes, we do. I will start off with the news that had everybody freaking out this past weekend. Ant-Man loses Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright has been trying to do an Ant-Man movie for Marvel for, what's it been, like 4 or 5 years now? Something like that.
A while.
Like just forever. Forever. And, it was finally looking like it was going to happen. They had the sort of concept test that they showed at Comic-Con last year. They finally started casting everybody. And in a statement on Marvel.com, Marvel and Edgar Wright jointly announced that the studio and director have parted ways on Marvel's Ant-Man due to differences in their vision of the film. I have seen that it is an amicable parting. However, Edgar Wright did tweet and has since deleted the image, a picture of him as Buster Keaton in a really iconic picture. It's like him on a window or a train or something like that. I'd need to find the picture again. And people were speculating that he's making some sort of metaphor about how when Buster Keaton went to like a major studio, he felt that he lost a lot of his artistic integrity. And this might be Edgar Wright making the same sort of statement. I don't know. Because of studio politics and things like that, we probably won't get the real story for a very long time. But for now, everybody's, making nice with each other.
There was also one other notable tweet about this, and that was Joss Whedon's tweet.
I was busy that day and I didn't see that.
Where he was holding up the cornetto thing.
Oh, okay, that one, yeah.
And there was no explanation given either way of whether it was...
And in that Buster Keaton picture, he was also holding a cornetto.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's not sure whether Joss Whedon was paying homage to Edgar Wright or whether he was saying that the story was better or he was being a company man and just giving a salute, or who knows what it meant. He didn't clarify, but he did acknowledge the fact that it happened.
I didn't see this until fairly late in the day on Saturday. Saturday was a very hectic day for me. I kind of checked Twitter after it all happened. One thing that I did see kind of as it was happening on Twitter was it yesterday this was announced that Daredevil has been cast for the Netflix series. Charlie Cox will be Matt Murdock. You might not know this name. If you've seen Stardust, which was directed by Matthew Vaughn, the guy that did X-Men First Class, he was the main character in that, Tristan. And if you watch Boardwalk Empire like I do, he played one of the kind of secondary characters for a couple seasons a few years ago. And he was very good in both of those. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him in Daredevil. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And now I'm hoping that they'll fill up the rest of the cast with equally, good caliber people.
So let me get this straight. He's not a sparkling vampire.
No, he is not a sparkling vampire.
He is not a teen idol that has a crossbow.
No, he is not a teen idol with a crossbow.
And he is not a teen anarchist.
No, I don't think you could classify him as a teen anarchist.
Okay. Just, rounded the bases there between Twilight, Hunger Games, and Divergence. Just making sure.
He was, however, like I said, in Stardust, he was, the love-struck guy who goes over the wall into the fairylands looking for a star. And Boardwalk Empire, he's an IRA terrorist hitman type guy who ends up working for the mafia in New Jersey.
Everybody works for the mob in Jersey.
Exactly. And now he will be playing Daredevil, and I'm looking forward to this.
Do you think he'll be a good successor to Ben Affleck?
I think so. Also, I hate to say that I actually really like the Daredevil movie, especially the director's cut where the plot actually makes more sense. According to, I forget which Kevin Smith podcast it was, he took that role mainly because he figured it was the closest he would get to being in a Batman movie because he's a huge fan of Frank Miller's Dark Knight.
Was it probably Fat Man on Batman?
No, I think it was Hollywood Babylon.
Ah.
One would argue that he still has yet to be cast in a Batman movie because he's been cast in a Batman and Superman movie, or Justice League Light, as it might be called. But we also have had some additional news on Daredevil about Drew Goddard.
Yeah, Drew Goddard was supposed to write and direct the first episode, the pilot episode of the Daredevil Netflix series, but he has left. The speculation is that he's going to work on a Sinister Six movie with Sony. So Stephen S. DeKnight, who was the showrunner on Spartacus, is taking over.
Woohoo!
Let's see. Should I direct a pilot episode of a new Netflix series, or should I go take over a major motion picture superhero movie?
I don't know. Netflix is doing pretty well these days. I remember hearing somebody saying that, like, TV is kind of like the new indie film these days in terms of what they're willing to tackle and in terms of, like, the critical acclaim. But having said that, I'm really, really, really looking forward to Stephen DeKnight doing Daredevil. And now I insist that he cast Katrina Law as Elektra.
Oh, that would be
Mara.
fantastic.
She played Mara on Spartacus, and she was amazing. And I would love that.
She also had a role on Arrow.
Oh, yeah. She's also on Arrow. She's Nyssa Al Ghul.
Okay. Thanks for the spoilers, ladies. I'm not there yet.
Suck it up, dude.
All right.
That's barely a spoiler anyways.
Yeah, I don't think she goes by like an alias or anything, so.
No, that's all right. I just haven't gotten to her yet.
You're not far away from her if you haven't gotten there yet.
Mm-hmm. I am just, well, I would say one episode away, but the very next episode I watch will be the vaunted Stephen Wandrew mid-season finale of season 2 of Arrow.
Cool.
You guys are too new to Gonna Geek to realize that Stephen Wandrew hates the term mid-season finale. So we try to say it as much as possible in as many podcasts as we can that are on the Gonna Geek Network.
You know, with all the new Marvel stuff coming up, we're going to get a chance to say it a lot.
That's right. Especially this fall, we'll have a mid-season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. right before we roll into Agent Carter. And depending on how they develop Agent Carter, we might actually have to say it again.
Oh, we can just say it at the midpoint.
Yeah.
We don't even it doesn't even have to be we can make it into a thing. We can make it into its own thing.
12 episodes, 6 episodes, mid-season finale. Boom. There you go.
8 episodes, we'll do the 4-episode mid-season finale. We'll throw a party.
Oh, I wonder if Phil Coulson is going to show up as a young agent in Agent. Well, that's got to be like 6 years before his time.
Yeah, I think it's too much before his time, because I was trying to figure out if they could make the math work so that we get young Coulson and May and Agent Carter. I just don't see it happening.
Maybe his dad.
Maybe, unless she runs the agency for like 30 years, which is possible.
Yeah, but they're not going to. They're going to start in what, 46 or whatever.
Yeah, but they could, like jump a decade every season or something.
Time jump? Yeah, I suppose. Other shows have done that.
Speaking of Phil Coulson.
Yeah, Clark Gregg has said he would like to see Phil Coulson in the Marvel Netflix series.
Wouldn't we all?
Yes, we would.
He is definitely an Avenger now, and I want to see him in everything.
In the same article, they were trying to figure out if he was going to be in Age of Ultron, and he said, his exact quote, "I don't think so. I think I would have heard about it by now. But I must say, as a qualifier, the only way I ever hear about stuff like that is I get a weird phone message with not the right number of numbers on it, and somebody says, 'We need to talk to you.'"
So he was at Comic Palooza this past weekend, and somebody did ask about that. So you're going to be in Age of Ultron, right? And he did say something to that effect of, at this time, no, but... Well, okay, what was it he said? He said, "I'm not saying I'm not in it," or something like that. Like, there were so many, like, double and triple negatives that...
You couldn't figure out what was said.
Yeah, but the gist of it was, like, as far as anybody knows, no, Coulson is not in Age of Ultron.
Was Jeff Loeb looking over his shoulder when he was saying it?
I don't believe Jeff Loeb was there, but they were joking about Marvel snipers and how Marvel is basically S.H.I.E.L.D. And y'all, I do have to mention this before we go on. That we were talking about, first of all, when Brett Dalton was announced, first everybody cheered because he was there, and then everybody booed because he plays Ward. And then apparently they only told him about the... I'm laughing remembering this. They only told him about, the big reveal about his character, like, the day before they were going to film it.
Oh.
And they were joking that the guy that plays Fitz was actually, like, he was so betrayed by this, he was actually crying. I think they might have just been joking around, but apparently it did affect him very badly. Yeah, they were like, Marvel is really like S.H.I.E.L.D. in that they will only ever tell you what they think you need to know. And they will give you, like, these fake copies of the script, and then they'll give you, like, the real script with, like, all the stuff in red. That's, like, the actual stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember, I think it was at PaleyFest that Phil was telling the story of how he found out he was going to be in Avengers, and he was filming Thor at the time, and some stagehand, I don't remember who it was, said, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're in Avengers." He's like, "Oh, cool." But they didn't tell him that he was going to die in Avengers. So
the way that he told us at the panel was that he got a call from, I think he said it was Joss Whedon. He got a call from somebody who said, "Hey, you're going to be in the Avengers and you're going to be playing a really important part." He's like, "Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you're going to die. But it's going to be what brings the team together." And he's like, "But really, I'm this really annoying guy." And like, no, it's going to work. And then that he was just like overwhelmed by the whole Coulson lives thing. And it's really because of that we got the show out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, by the way, I recorded this panel, so theoretically at some point y'all might be able to hear it.
Yes, our agent Lauren has been a con addict this past 2 weeks, and we have outfitted her with recording devices, and she does have audio, and we will be going through it, but she hasn't had time to get me the audio yet to make sense of it.
I need to put it in the secret drop location and assorted spy things, and you get the picture. I'm really bad at making jokes and metaphors.
Just give it to the NSA, they'll get it to me at some point in time.
I'll just send it through Gmail.
Yeah, right. So last weekend was Memorial Day weekend, the big weekend, and one would argue that it is the start of the summer movie season, although I would argue it always starts about a month and a half before that. And we did get X-Men Days of Future Past, which you two ladies went to and I did not, and I'm so jealous. But it pulled in. I made a comment about it last week about I didn't know how well it was going to do because of the stuff surrounding, but it pulled in $110.5 million in its first weekend just here locally in the United States. That's pretty big bank.
It's a good chunk of change. Mm-hmm. And you would think we wouldn't have to tell you this at this point, but for a Marvel movie, stay through the credits. There is something worth seeing.
You know, most of the audience at mine actually did. I was very impressed. It was a full theater, and the majority of the people, I'd say easily 80%, stayed. I was very proud.
At least half of the people walked out of my theater as soon as the credits started.
Now, was there shawarma and then mid-season or mid-credit scenes, or was there just shawarma?
There's just one end-credit scene. There's no mid-credit.
End-credit scene. Our consultant wing has decreed that all end-credit scenes must now be called shawarma.
Nah.
I have heard them referred to as such, yes.
So, consultant wing rules. This was his podcast to begin with. I can't do anything to upset the consultant. You can. I can't.
I'm a rebel. Hail Hydra.
So also I was curious to see how Spider-Man 2 fared. It's in its fourth week. It has pulled in $667 million worldwide, only $188 million here in the United States, and it's estimated to cost somewhere on the realm of $225 to $250 million. So if you factor in the worldwide box office, it's basically made its bank. Now, I don't know exactly how all the money transfers from country to country, if it has to stay overseas or if it actually comes back to the theater or whatever. Or, excuse me, the movie house, which is Sony for Spider-Man, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know how Sony makes its money on the movie that's supposed to be based in the United States, but it has basically made its money back and then some. So they're going to keep the rights for a while. They're probably going to make a Spider-Man 3.
Please don't let it be like the other Spider-Man movie. I dreamed last night that I had to remake Spider-Man 3 and make it better.
That would be a good challenge for you, though. You'd like it, wouldn't you?
I would.
Yeah. We'll have to come up with a fake script and go through that. You also, by the way, I haven't bothered you because you've been going to so many cons. You promised us that you would look into fanfic.
Yes, I did. I will tell you about it later.
Oh, okay. Woohoo! It's not in the notes, so I thought, hey, she forgot about it, but she did not. That's awesome. All right, so we are in the off-season, and in this off-season, we were wondering what to talk about. We decided to talk about Iron Man at the beginning of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then we decided, hey, let's just go through all the movies, so that's cool. The next one up is The Incredible Hulk, which also aired in the theaters in 2008, just like Iron Man.
Well, Iron Man was 2007, I think.
Ooh. I thought it was 2008. No big deal. They aired really close together, right away, bang, bang. And they basically started filming with like a week or 2 week break in between the two. And me personally, taking a look at the two back to back, I felt like Iron Man was the more comprehensively better movie. But if you take a look at the special effects in Hulk, especially in comparison to the 2003 Hulk, they're just phenomenal. And it's great to have the Hulk we have today based on that. But I liked it. I'm not a Hulk fan, per se. I mean, I like the Hulk, but he's not my favorite superhero by any means. But it was a good representation. I have some things to say about the compare and contrast between the 2003 movie, but how did you like the movie, Haley?
I enjoy it. It's probably my least favorite of all of the Marvel Studios movies, though.
Now, I would definitely go with the original Captain America for that one.
I like the original Captain America, so.
Ditto.
Fair enough. So it's your least favorite, and why is that?
Just in general, I feel like the Hulk story gets kind of repetitive very quickly. You know, he's either fighting a giant monster or the military, in this case both. So once you've seen it once, you've seen it. And
the twist that he actually fights for the military at the end, that didn't do anything for you?
No, because that's the Hulk story. That's how it always works out. He fights the military, and they're dicks, and then he's got to do something to save them later, like fighting the giant monster that they created to kill him.
Mm-hmm. Lauren?
This is also my least favorite Marvel movie, which I hate saying because I really like the director. He also did Unleashed, which I love. And I love Ed Norton. But first of all, I'd been so excited for this movie when it was coming out. And then the day that we went to go see it, halfway through the movie, I realized I was getting a migraine. This is not a movie you want to watch in a theater with a migraine. Because, 2 words, sound cannon. That was horrible. That was awful. And I just had such bad associations with me that I couldn't watch this movie forever. You know how I say I watch Iron Man every time it's on FX? This is probably the first time I've watched this movie all the way through since it came out. That said, there's some really good performances in it. I watched it with the commentary because I'm a huge nerd. And Tim Roth and the director Louis, I can't pronounce it, it's very French. They're really entertaining on the commentary, and you get a sense of, you know, how enthusiastic they were for the project. Like, the director was saying how when Marvel approached him, he was really reluctant because he's such a huge fan and he didn't want to screw it up. But then he went into a comic store and he was looking through some books and he's like, you know, there's some really good scenes here. I think I could do this. And he's pointing out which scenes are homages to what, which characters are homages to who. And, you know, you just get the sense of, you know, these people wanted to do right by the character, by Marvel, by the story. So it was a project that was made with a lot of love. And I do respect that. It's just that because of my bad associations, I can't fully enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I did watch both movies today, actually. I was home from work, and I watched the 2003 Hulk movie on Blu-ray, and then I watched The Incredible Hulk, which is 2008. And I was doing some comparing and contrasting, especially since you guys mentioned that they could possibly work together. Well, no, they can't. At least not in my mind, because it's a completely different origin story. Talbot ends up being dead. Betty definitely sees Bruce as the Hulk, and she knows he's the Hulk. There is an excessive amount of Bruce Banner anger in comparison to this movie. General Ross is actually very much more sympathetic in 2003 than the 2008, where he just wants the technology, which is probably closer to what the character is really trying to be, but it was definitely a stark difference. I did notice that Stan Lee and Kevin Feige were listed as the executive producers on the 2003 Hulk movie, so I don't know when Kevin's first Marvel executive producer credit was. This could have been it. I don't know. Do you happen to know, Lauren?
Off the top of my head, no. Let me get back to you in just a minute. Keep talking.
Okay. And the Hulk does say puny human, which paves the way for the Avengers line of puny god. And we do get to see a transformation back into Bruce Banner in the 2003 Hulk movie, and we've never seen that since. We didn't see that in The Incredible Hulk. We did not see that in Avengers. We get to see Bruce after he's transformed, but we never see a transformation while it's occurring. General Ross was a 4-star general in the 2003 Hulk movie. He's now a 3-star general. I'm not sure which is more true to the comics. And of note, I was wondering about the 2008 movie, about what's going on with Blonsky and the Abomination. I remember the Marvel one-shot, The Consultant, and I took a look at that again. I watched that again, and they said he was in his cage in General Ross's sector. So bringing it back to S.H.I.E.L.D., who controls General Ross's sector right now? Is it Hydra? Is it the United States? Is it S.H.I.E.L.D.? Is it Freelance? And what the heck's going on with Blonsky? Because the Abomination is definitely a huge weapon that they could have been using along the way. You can't control him, but he's definitely a huge weapon.
I think S.H.I.E.L.D. controls Ross's stuff because at some point, I don't remember which episode, I was trying to find it in my notes, but at some point, Coulson threatens to send Ward to Alaska to guard Blonsky's cell.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Wow. I'll have to catch that.
They do mention him. I was like, ah.
Oh, there you go.
In the first Incredible Hulk comic, Ross is a 3-star general.
Okay. So the only other direct mention that we get to S.H.I.E.L.D. is the S.H.I.E.L.D. operations database that they find Bruce Banner when he's on the run with Betty, trying to find Dr. what's his name, Stearns?
Dr. Stern.
Yeah, Dr. Stern. and S.H.I.E.L.D. operation database is used. Aside from that, S.H.I.E.L.D. technology is bought by General Ross, but we don't get a lot of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie, and that was done at the time by, it was conscious effort that they just didn't want to ramp up the S.H.I.E.L.D., which I think is a big mistake, but I don't think they knew what a big hit like Fury was going to be at the end of Iron Man, or Phil Coulson for that matter, in the middle of Iron Man. So they were definitely playing it way safe.
Yeah, I think they really just wanted to make sure the movie could stand on its own, that it wouldn't depend too much on people having seen something else.
I think that was a big part of it. I was, again, listening to the commentary, which apparently they were recording the day of the movie premiere. They were talking about how, they did kind of want it to mention Iron Man just because they were coming out so close together. But Iron Man was 2008, by the way.
Woohoo! Take that, Agent Haley.
Oh, and Kevin Feige's first Marvel-produced movie was X-Men in 2000.
Okay.
So he's been with them for a while.
Mm-hmm. So 3 years later, he took the credit for this.
Yeah. They did want it to be connected because it was coming out so close together. But between what he was saying in that commentary and what Jon Favreau was saying in the Nerdist podcast I heard recently, they weren't sure it was ever going to be an actual thing. So they just wanted to make movies that stood on their own. And they were nice little Easter eggs for fans, like, the Stark Industries stuff that they bought at the beginning of the movie to hunt down the Hulk, which I think those sound cannons were supposed to be.
Yeah, there wasn't a heck of a lot of great technology. I think the sound cannons...
Which were apparently Ed Norton's idea. They were trying to figure out how they were going to take down the Hulk. And he was like, well, what about sound cannons? And they were like, well, how are we going to visualize it? And then somebody got the idea of making, like, actual ripples and stuff. And they really ended up liking how it looked.
Mm-hmm. And at that time period, the early 2000s, the non-kinetic weapons like sound cannons like that were really starting to come to the forefront. So this was something that was based in true military hardware, and I thought it was pretty cool to see it on the screen. And the way the sound, the distortion with the sound was very water-ish, and I think they did a great job of it. But besides that, I didn't really see a whole heck of a lot of Stark technology. I was wondering if this would have been a good tie-in to perhaps have a Jericho weapon.
Well, you could say that this is during the time period when he was not selling weapons.
Right.
Yeah, you could, since he's... it's clearly after he's had contact with S.H.I.E.L.D. because they send him to talk to Ross after all this goes down. And this happens during the events of... Is it Thor? Where they see the footage on a TV. So you kind of get a sense that all this stuff is all happening at once. So yeah, presumably Stark is not selling, weapons anymore. However, I guess they could have he could have either got the sound cannons from way earlier because, yeah, like you said, they were doing a lot of stuff with like the crowd control and all this stuff back in the early and mid 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were definitely trying to figure out ways to not hurt people, but yet achieve their means. Basically, standoff distances were big and huge back then. They didn't want to be overtaken by a big crowd, like a limited compound, like Benghazi turned out to be. It would have been great to have some sort of non-kinetic weapon like that, but that wasn't the case. And, that's real world, and we're talking about comics here, but I just thought it was great that the technology that they bring forth in this movie is not out of the realm of reality, basically. So for an engineer, that's pretty cool. But for somebody that doesn't know anything about hardware and weaponry or whatever, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Speaking of professional stuff, you know what I was weirdly happy with? They actually had a well-lit lab when they go to see Stern. So often on TV and stuff, they'll try to have, like on CSI, this drives me crazy. They'll have, a dramatically lit lab and it's all, the blue lights and things like that. And like, you would not be able to see a damn thing. We have these like horrifically bright fluorescent lights so that we can see all the numbers of the little bitty stuff we're pouring. And that was like, it looked like an actual college's lab. I was very glad for that.
Stern's lab looked like a high school chemistry set to me, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. I liked that.
I also like it was a university laboratory where half the equipment didn't work.
Yes,
that is also very true to real life.
Yes, it is. Okay, the lab that I work at, most of it was purchased at some point in the 1980s. Pretty much any lab that is not like a privately funded lab, you will probably find equipment that was, bought however many decades ago that they can't afford to replace. And I liked that it looked like that because you have to rely on funding and grants. And I could just nerd out over that all day. I liked that it actually looked like a university lab.
It's too bad that Stern... Well, we never actually see Stern die, do we?
No. You know who Stern is in the comics.
Yeah.
Pray tell, please, because I don't know.
He's probably the most famous Hulk villain, the Leader.
Oh, yeah? I didn't know.
Guy with a big, giant green head.
Yeah. Whereas the Hulk was exposed to gamma radiation and became super strong, the Leader was exposed to gamma radiation and became super smart.
Smart.
Yeah, if for any of y'all who want a quick glimpse at the Leader, go to YouTube and look up Floating Hands Productions. And I think it's the one about the villains. And there's a bunch of Marvel villains complaining about their costumes. The guy with the giant head is the Leader. It's a wonderful little short cartoon. I love it.
I will make sure I check that out. So we definitely have some Hulk origins to go through.
Yeah. Incredible Hulk #1 is the Hulk origin story. It has a cover date of May 1962, and it had the dynamic duo of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby as the creative forces.
Mm-hmm. And they are listed and they are credited at the beginning of this of creating the Incredible Hulk.
Yes. In the original origin story, it was a gamma bomb that Bruce Banner had designed. They were testing it. Rick Jones was a dumb teenager hanging out on the missile testing grounds like you do. So Bruce Banner ran out to save him, and in saving Rick Jones, he was exposed to massive amounts of gamma radiation, and he turned into the Grey Hulk, and his transformation was originally controlled kind of like a werewolf as DeKnight. And then later he invented a machine that controlled the transformations, and then he got stuck as the Hulk for a while, and then it became, don't make him angry.
So was the gamma radiation bomb fueled by transistor technology?
They didn't mention if it was transistors or not. I would assume so. Transistors and magnets.
Because we all know transistors and magnets actually produce gamma radiation.
How do they work?
Well, that's pretty cool. So since this is 1962, you have read this already.
Yes, I have. This was actually the second Marvel comic about heroes, and it was the first solo comic, because the only group that was out before this was the Fantastic Four.
Which I've thought about getting into, but then I thought about Guardians of the Galaxy, and not to belabor the point, but I feel robbed that in this day and age of right before a movie, you have to spend over $90 just to get a trade paperback of Guardians of the Galaxy before the movie comes out. That is ridiculous.
Okay, seriously, where were you going that it was $90?
It was on Amazon.com.
Okay, was it like an entire run of the series or something?
It was a trade paperback. It was a book one. There's 3 books out there, and it was book one was like $90. Yeah, apparently it's a big collector's item at this point in time, which you would think would be, but you would think that whoever was going to publish these things would actually publish some so that the rest of us that don't care about the collectibles and just want to see the story can actually read it. So I ended up buying it on Comixology, and I read a few pages so far in my little note, and I'm getting used to it, so we'll just see how it happens. It's $17 on Comixology, by the way.
Yeah, right now Comixology is having like a Guardians of the Galaxy collection special. I ended up picking up, I think, Tomorrow's Avengers Volume 1 for like, what was it, like $3?
Mm-hmm. So not to belabor the point, we're actually talking about the Incredible Hulk. That was just my little rant on I want actual paperback stuff so I can read it at work because I can't take my electronics with me. And nope, can't do that. Okay. But also there's some information about the Abomination origin too.
Yeah, he premiered in Tales to Astonish number 90 from April of 1967. That was written by Stan Lee, drawn by Gil Kane. You don't actually get the name of Emil Blonsky in this book. He's just an enemy spy hanging out on the Air Force Base And he steals Banner's gamma machine and turns himself into the Abomination.
I wonder if he knew Black Widow.
They went to cool spy parties together.
Yeah, cool Russian spy parties. Yeah. So, in the grand scheme of things, since you ladies are comic fiends and I am not, who was the least like their comic book character in The Incredible Hulk?
You'd probably have to ask Haley that one, because honestly, I'm not the hugest Hulk fan. My biggest exposure to the Hulk is in teen books.
I thought you were going to say your biggest exposure to the Hulk was in gamma radiation.
That's his biggest exposure to anything.
We are talking about the Hulk being exposed. I mean, you know,
apparently, by the way, that was one of Tim Roth's biggest complaints. Why did the Hulk get junk and he didn't? Like, he kept belaboring this point to the director.
Yeah. Okay, so Haley, do you want to take a stab at the question I asked about who would be least like their comic book character?
Probably Betty Ross, just because what I've read of her is from the 60s, and the female characters in the 60s weren't necessarily the most well-rounded.
So do you think the transformation was to the better in the movie versus the comic books?
Definitely. She's more independent. She's actually a character as opposed to a plot device. Everything they've done is probably an improvement.
Do you think that we'll ever see Betty Ross again in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Only if they do another Hulk solo movie, which I don't know if they'll do or not.
Yeah, probably not. I'd like to see Liv Tyler in the Marvel Universe again, but that's probably not going to happen. Lauren, what was your favorite part of the movie?
That's kind of a tough one.
The favorite part for me of the 2003 movie is when the Hulk jumps off of the Golden Gate Bridge onto the back of the F-22 to make sure it didn't hit the Golden Gate Bridge. And then he flew up to 95,000 feet just trying to hang on for dear life. So that was my favorite part because he's doing something to save everybody, and yet they try to kill him in the process, but he survives.
Okay, I thought of my favorite part.
Okay.
Tim Roth getting punched into a tree.
That was awesome.
That was pretty fantastic.
Crunch. And they didn't blow it off like they did in the 2003 Hulk movie where Talbot gets smashed into a car a couple of times across the room, stuff like that. He actually broke every bone in his body. And then he had taken the serum, though, which made him healthy again, which would be cool right now because my lower back kind of hurts, and I'd like a serum like that. Haley, what was your favorite part of the movie?
I would say probably Lou Ferrigno's cameo. He's always awesome.
Very similar to the cameo in 2003, by the way. They're both security guards. And there was, talking about that, there was a couple of deleted scenes about the pizza delivery. And one of the pizza delivery scenes was when Ed Norton goes to a sorority and they just treat him like crap. And he ends the conversation by saying, "You wouldn't like me if I'm angry." And they just slam the door in his face.
In the novelization, the guy that he delivers the pizza to is Amadeus Cho, who's a character who ends up kind of being the Rick Jones to Hercules' Hulk when the series turns into the Incredible Hercules. I had been hoping that it would be, a little Asian kid, but no, it was just apparently some friend of Ed Norton's.
There was a deleted scene where he actually delivered the pizza to a computer lab guy.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Oh, that's the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, and he lets him access the network and stuff, so.
That guy is apparently a friend of Ed Norton's who was just like hanging around, so they were like, hey, put him in the movie.
I mean, there were a couple of good things about the movie. There was the scene where Ed Norton swallows the USB drive because he
How the heck did he swallow that? That thing was huge.
Hey, if you're determined enough.
It had rubber coating on it, right? You would hope. Well, I just saw a story on IO9. Was it IO9 or was it Wired? I don't know. It was one of those websites this past week where there was a camera found off the shore of British Columbia and in saltwater, and it had been there for at least months, if not years. They pulled it up and they actually read the pictures off of the SD card in there. And that was the only way they found out who it was, by the way, because they posted it on Twitter and Facebook, and it automatically populated by, "Would you like to take so-and-so?" They're like, "Oh, okay, that's who it owns." And it turns out, by the way, there's a happy ending to the story, that the people whose pictures this belonged to were it was the only pictures they had of the event, and they were on the way out into the bay or ocean or whatever to do a burial at sea of somebody's ashes. So they were very grateful to get those pictures back. But so if an SD card can survive in the ocean for months and months and possibly years and still have pictures on it, I think the USB drive could stand a couple of days in the Hulk's stomach. But that's just me.
And seriously, people sneak stuff into prisons all the time.
Do tell, because I've never done that. How does that work? How's that working out for you, Lauren?
Oh, I'm not saying I've done it. I'm just saying people do it.
A friend of mine did it. It wasn't me.
I did have a teacher who taught us how to make prison weapons in class once.
Like shanks and stuff?
Yeah.
Important life skills.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How? Well, what's your favorite type of snake? Snake. I can't say it. What's your favorite
Shank?
type? Yeah. What's your favorite type of shank?
I can make a knife out of a toothbrush.
Yeah, that's pretty easy.
Yep.
All right. So what is my favorite scene of the movie? I think it's when Stern is just sitting there on the floor and he gets the blood in his head and the smile that comes on his face. It's just like, that's going to be trouble later on.
Well, you also see his head kind of starts bulging out a little bit there, too.
Yeah, when you see the character, you know why.
Mm-hmm. So, you guys got anything else about the Incredible Hulk?
We got some little snippets of the Sad Hulk music when he was in Guatemala.
Mm-hmm. Lauren?
If you get a chance, I really recommend you listen to the commentary. There's so much in there that I hadn't really realized because I didn't actually grow up watching the Incredible Hulk TV series regularly, but there's so much stuff that was like homages to it because the director grew up watching it. There's seriously, this movie was made with a lot of love, and I do have to respect that even if it's not one of my favorites.
So which versions of the movie do you own, Lauren?
I got the original Blu-ray that came out with the alternate beginning.
Uh-huh.
The one with the green cover, the holographic cover and stuff like that.
Right, and the alternate beginning is when he goes up on a glacier and tries to
kill himself.
Yeah, and the Hulk appears and bam.
Yeah. Now I have the version with the metal cover.
Yeah, the steel case version?
Yes.
So, did the original Blu-ray have the commentary on it?
Yes.
Okay. So is that the one you listened to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I need to see if the commentary on the steel case version is the same.
I think it is. It's the director and Roth. Yeah, Tim Roth.
Seriously, really entertaining, really educational. I highly recommend listening to commentaries wherever possible because I am a huge nerd like that. But they're a lot of fun, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're extremely unhelpful, like any one that Arnold Schwarzenegger has ever done, where he literally just describes what he's doing on screen.
I remember when I got the Avengers movie from Target, which had the extras on it, I immediately plugged it in. I was actually traveling at that point in time, so I was in a hotel, and I knew I was going to be traveling at the time that it came out, so I took my Xbox with me. I plugged it into the TV. I plugged the thing in, and I just sat there for like 5 hours listening to the Avengers commentary.
Yeah, that and the Cabin in the Woods commentary are two of my favorite commentaries.
Joss Whedon does great commentary.
He really does.
Mm-hmm. He's definitely plays for the fans. He's a fan himself, though. And I took your advice. I was listening to the Jon Favreau Nerdist podcast again this past week, and they had an interesting conversation during that, which I did not remember the first time that I listened to it, which was, at what point in time do you stop being a fanboy of work that's being done after you get into Hollywood? And Jon Favreau was saying that the directors and the producers that he grew up on, like Tarantino, he revered as gods, but the people that are directing at the same time as he is, even though they might actually do better stuff than Tarantino, he doesn't consider them in such high regard or not. So that was a interesting conversation for them to have, just because they don't get a chance to go out and see movies very often. They get the studio versions or whatever, the early release versions that they get to watch, so at least at home, so at least they know what they're talking about, but they don't actually get to go out and experience them as fans in the theater for the most part. So interesting conversation. I would definitely recommend, if you have not, it's Nerdist 515, and following Lauren's recommendation last week, I would definitely second that and go listen to it. So you guys had anything else about the Incredible Hulk?
I don't believe so.
Haley?
I'm good.
Well, that's debatable because, you're Hail Hydra.
I'm delightfully
Hydra.
evil.
So next week, if we follow our pattern, we will be talking about Iron Man 2, which I think is the case, right, ladies?
Correct.
Okay. So we'll talk about Iron Man 2. This is the next movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that came out.
That's the one that has the footage for this. When
Iron
he's
Man
in
2?
the coffee shop. Yeah. He's in the place with the donut.
Oh, I swore it was Thor when they were at the breakfast place, but it was the same type of scene.
Yeah.
Donut shop in the coffee house.
Yeah, it's the same
breakfast
type of
place.
scene.
Okay. So Iron Man 2, we'll be talking about that next week. Don't forget, you can always catch us at legendsofshield.com. Go to the top right-hand corner and see all the great ways that you can contact us, interact with us. You can also call the voicemail line, right, Haley?
Yes, you can reach us at 844 the bus one. That's 844-843-2871.
And enjoy all the rest of the geeky podcasts on the GonnaGeek.com network. So until next week, I'm Stargate Pioneer saying bye-bye now.
Bye.
Later.
Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to GonnaGeek.com and you will find all of our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod and can be found at incompetech.com. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual host and do not represent Legends, Stream, or Gonna Geek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the property of the Disney Corporation. No infringement is intended.